Hi, I'm Alan Ross with EPRA. This is another Take 5. Our guest today is someone I actually met at a IMC or reliability conference. Where were we, George? It was in Florida somewhere.
Fort
We were
Myers. Yep.
Yeah, Fort Myers. We were sitting on the patio. I remember that with a bunch of other people, and we did some dinners and things. George at that time was in charge of reliability for Constellation Brands and had some great thoughts and ideas about what he was doing there. Then he went dark for a week, and then he showed up, and he is in charge of global assets for Facebook. And welcome to the Take 5, George. But I got a specific question for you about your role now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alan.
So we are both on a VSIG, which is a virtual special interest group for reliability web. And that is focused on, and it actually started before you were with Facebook, so you didn't get to start with us. We didn't get a lot done for the first year, George. You joined and we started getting things done. I don't know if that's attributed to you, but we are actually creating, if you know Reliability Web, for those that don't, it's got the uptime elements that Terry O'Hanlon has worked so hard to develop. And we are working on a VSIG, which is to bring data center critical electrical systems. It started off all data center, but then we refocused it on critical electrical systems. And to be able to bring uptime elements into that and that into uptime elements. That's our charge and our goal. And one of the things that I realized, George, is that when you came into Facebook and you came into the data center world, and now you've seen part of our VSIG, you've got to see a lot of the changes and challenges that you're being tasked to make, because it's not that you're replacing a role, you're in a new role. Is that correct?
Yeah, we identified an asset management pillar within our global facility operations earlier this year,
Okay.
March timeframe.
So what do you think are the biggest challenges that you are and are going to be facing at Facebook as you try to implement a data center asset management program, or as we're working on over at the VSIG, a reliability centered program?
Yeah, so as my role focuses specifically on operations, there's certainly a lot of other teams like within our organization. There's significant contributors into reliability and asset management, and also like expect information from our team. So like, for example, right now we're having a lot of dialogue around like asset criticality and failure modes and failure mode analysis. And although that we have some processes that are in place, we want to make sure that we can provide I would say alignment to the organization around how are we defining this, and then how are we going to utilize the information that comes out of asset criticality and failure mode analysis, for example. So one way that we're doing that is we're getting ready to release this in the next week, is an asset management guideline document, which is essentially documenting how we manage, how we maintain these assets, and ensuring that we are defining what those roles and responsibilities are. And I think for me, like one of the first things, and we talked about this when I was back at Constellation, is around like the that governance process. Like, how are we understanding how the leadership support that we need? What is the strategy that we're going to go after? How do these things all tie together? So that's like one of the things that we wanted to first and foremost get captured.
You know, I gotta ask you a question about that, because that is asset agnostic, correct? You're creating a process document by which everybody can agree to the process, to what the outcomes are trying to be, and then you're bringing in specific assets. I assume that's what you mean when you talk about that document. Okay, good.
Yeah. I was going to say, so we've kind of broken it up into what we're calling these pillars that are focusing on various elements of asset management. It's things that are just used predominantly in different organizations, like reliability centered maintenance, the way how we manage all of our master asset data, the way how we maintain and manage all of these assets, and also looking at things like lifecycle management, which in data centers, at least when you think about like the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, a lot of the data centers, they're not that very old. They've been around, for a very short period of time. But how are you going to start to plan and budget for those replacements and and ensuring that you have like plans in place to effectively manage all that and manage the risk to data center operations.
And one of the problems with life cycle management, and you're going to face that as they age out, we see it over in the industrial side, is not all assets age out at the same. Transformers last forever, and it seems like relays don't work after 5 years, or they become obsolete, right? Because a new technology comes in there. So we see all kinds of problems in there. Is that, when you talk about life cycle management, are you creating again, a process document, or are you just saying, hey guys, let's all agree to the terms and the words where because you're using reliability terms, failure modes, effect analysis, reliability centered maintenance. You know what I find? Most people go, what are you talking about? You know, we don't use those terms in operations. Is that somewhat true in your data centers?
There's certainly some education to be done there, which is why we want to make sure that we align on what those definitions are, right? Because a lot of us that have come from other industries like nuclear, oil and gas, where these things have been being done for decades, we have a lot of that like knowledge and understanding, but let's document it, let's define it, let's align on how we're going to do that, like moving forward. And specifically on the lifecycle management, it's very valid, like what you were saying, that you're going to have these things that are 5 years to 40 years, but we need to make sure that we understand, okay, like what is that expected life, because we need to make sure that we're planning for that, adequately. And so a lot of that is making sure that you define like what the process is. Like, so we see like what we call like LCM, like within the asset management like program. But we have specific people that are like working on that to help bring that program to life and make sure that we're tying it back to our asset management objectives and goals.
Sounds like you're on your road to ISO 55000, which kind of encompasses a lot of those things in there. We could go on, and we will again. We'll talk about some of the other things that are happening, but let me just reiterate to one of the things that we believe at EPRA is all reliability begins at design. And that is not just the design of the asset, that's the design of the system. And I appreciate, George, the first thing that you're doing is you're making sure everybody agrees to the definitions, the design of the system, that what we're trying to do, because that's the only other way you're going to get these other LCM groups and others to be able to come in and be part of it. But we'll talk about culture and culture change. This, though, has been a Take 5. Thank you again, George Parada from Facebook.
Thanks, Alan.